buckle on his blue collar. "He's getting horns," Julia stated. "He'll be impossible to manage." Essie said nothing. She knew Julia was tense because of the radio call, and this was on top of the fact that she had never approved of Tommy being at the camp. He'd been found 6 months ago by one of the local workers, abandoned by his mother only weeks after his birth. When Tommy had been brought to the work hut, Julia had instructed the worker to put the hungry animal out of its misery. "No, wait," Essie had intervened. The baby looked so frightened, his cry almost silent as if his voice had run out. "Let's keep him. I'll take care of him." "That's not a good idea," Julia had said firmly. "You might think you're being kind, but you're not. It's very hard to rehabilitate a wild animal that's become tame. He'll never belong anywhere." She'd gone on to talk about the cost of milk powder and other practical issues. Then she'd started on a more serious concern. By rescuing the creature, Essie would be interfering in a natural process, survival of the fittest. Julia had looked to her son for support, but Ian had surprised both women by taking Essie's side. "I don't see what harm it can do. One little gazelle." Essie had fallen in love with Tommy. She often buried her face in his fur, breathing his smell. She felt a rush of affection when she saw him sitting in the shade with his legs folded away so neatly, and she smiled at the sight of his tail flicking constantly from side to side. Now, Tommy was half-grown and grazing independently, but he was showing no sign of wanting to return to the wild. Instead, he still liked to stay as close to Essie as possible. He would sidle into the tent and stand, like he was now, right at her side. Avoiding Julia's gaze, Essie tore off a hunk of bread and fed it to Tommy, watching the quaint sideways movement of his jaws as he chewed. "You'll have to let him go in the end," Julia said. Essie took a breath. "I know that." There was a short silence. Essie noticed a smear of marmalade on Julia's chin. She found herself rubbing her own chin as if that could remove it. Into the quiet came the sound of footsteps, brittle leaves and twigs being crushed. Essie looked up to see Ian striding over. There was a focused look on his face, as though his thoughts were racing. "Is it good or bad?" Essie couldn't help asking. On the other side of the table, Julia waited quietly for a report. Her stillness felt like a reproof, a reminder that her daughter-in-law hadn't yet spent enough time at the gorge to learn how to take each day, month, year as it came. Ian let the quiet stretch out for a few seconds. Then he grinned. "Guess who I've been talking to?" Julia watched him, saying nothing. "Frank Marlowe," Ian announced. Julia's eyes widened. "You mean Frank Marlowe himself?" Ian nodded. "I could hardly believe it." Essie had heard the name Marlowe, but couldn't place it, so she just raised her eyebrows to show she was impressed. "He's staying at the lodge," Ian continued. "Yesterday, he flew to Olduvai to see their museum. Leakey took him around all their sites, showed him what they are working on." A shadow of dismay crept into Ian's voice. The Leakeys were another family of archaeologists who worked in a gorge about half a day's drive away. A year ago, they'd managed to secure funding for a museum at their research base. It had been a real coup, and it was hard not to feel envious of them. The moment passed, though, and Ian's smile returned. "Now he's coming to Magadi." "He wants to see what we're doing." Julia clasped her hands together like someone offering a prayer of thanks. "Not exactly," Ian said. "He wants to bring his wife here. It's a surprise, for their wedding anniversary." Julia mouthed his last words as if they made no sense. At Magadi camp, Christmas was celebrated and birthdays warranted a cake, if the ingredients could be found. But wedding anniversaries were barely mentioned. Ian and Essie's had come around 4 times. They'd married within a year of her arrival at Magadi. Essie always wished that they could go away somewhere together to mark the occasion, perhaps to Serengeti. But the date occurred in January,